Okay, welcome guys. We've got some people joining. I'm going to give it a minute, and while we let people join, I'm going to start us off with some intros and things like that, some just quick housekeeping items. And when we hit the top of the hour here in a minute, we'll start recording and we'll get started. But just some quick introductions here. You've got two folks from the Red Team's product team here today. I'm Jen, and I have Neil with me as well. Both of us have been working on this, the features that we're going to be sharing with you guys today regarding the bid leveling tools that are new. So just some quick webinar, housekeeping items. This is a training session. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion at the beginning, just kind of a general, industry topic discussion. And then we're going to get into some of the details of the new tools that Red Team has. Something I'm going to mention again when we officially get started here in a second, but I'm going to mention again now is that at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about how you get these tools turned on. Some of you guys who are in this webinar may or may not have these tools available to you today in your Red Team account. And that's something that your CSM can help you get access to. So I'll mention it again, but good morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world today. Thank you guys for taking the time to join this training webinar. I did just give a few updates on today's topics that I did mention, like today is a training webinar, but that we will be talking about a few other topics to start. You can kind of see here in the agenda, we're just going to kind of have a few topics for discussion, talk a little bit about those and kind of how they feed into, Red Team's tools. And then, of course, at the end here, we're gonna spend plenty of time looking at some of those processes in Red Team. And we'll, of course, have a Q&A. Also, there is a Q&A available now. So, you can ask questions throughout. We'll take some of those at the end. Some of those, Neil's going to be here as well trying to help answer. So feel free to start asking some of those questions. Just to get a jump on one of those questions I know will probably come up from someone is that some of the tools we're seeing today, because don't forget that a lot of the focus today is on bid packages and new bid forms and some things that aren't even yet available, right? And so it's a little bit of a preview. And so you may be wondering, well, how do I get access to that? How can I start using that in my Red Team? And the answer is you can reach out to your CSM. We're going to have a slide at the end, actually, with a quick way for you to do that, in fact. So make sure you stick around for that, although you'll be able to get the slides later as well. But your CSM is going to be able to help you get that all set up. Okay. All right, without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to get really into today bid leveling and collaborative tools. We're going to start just by talking a little bit about bid leveling, a little intro to bid leveling, kind of what is it? So I thought this would be a fun exercise. I went into Gemini, one of Google's new AI tools, and I kind of asked it to explain bid leveling like I was 5. And it gave me this example, the pizza analogy. And I know that I have an audience here, right, of folks who are probably very familiar with this, but I figured it would just be a nice way to kind of get us all started. So as we all kind of understand, kind of like with this pizza analogy, when we're trying to get bids, we can get lots of different numbers, but numbers is just one thing. Getting just a straight number only tells us a little bit of the story. Really, what we want to do when we're trying to get accurate bids is we want to get several numbers and we want to get a further breakdown of that. Now, and of course, our pizza analogy, we're going to be talking about a breakdown of things like toppings and sizes and all of that kind of stuff. And of course, we all know that in construction, this is going to be your breakdown of all your different trades, typically by cost code, and all the different items that are going to be included there. That's the only way to really get an accurate look, right, at what a true bid is. And so it's really critical that you kind of use tools to make sure you get the most accurate bids. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges, right? Challenges that we have today in the whole kind of bidding, pre-construction, and bid leveling process, right? So one, inconsistent bid formats, right? We get lots of different formats from different subs. Sometimes a bid is just an email with a breakdown. Maybe they've got some kind of template, but often they're different formats and things like that. And so that can be very difficult, right? If then we're trying to look at those across a spread of different bidders. And in a lot of cases, what people are doing, right, is building spreadsheets to try to then break that down. Well, we're going to talk today about how some of the tools, right, the Red Team has could help you to alleviate that from the beginning, right? By having bid packages nicely set up so that people can submit the bids against those. Other kind of pain points, scope creep variations, right? So not everybody's covering the same scope of work. Some people are covering parts of the stuff in there. You might have you need to package together all your MEP cost codes and then send that out to submitters. And maybe you've got some companies that'll do all the mechanical and plumbing work, and some that'll do the entire package, and some that, can only do the electrical. I don't know. So you may have kind of the need to see those across different bidders. Who's leaving out different items? Where do we need to address discrepancies? So that's going to be an important factor as well. Something else that building bid packages is going to help with. Obviously, things like unclear specifications. This is just a general one. We all know, right, that if everybody's looking at the specs, we can have, people have different ideas of then how that's broken down based on what's in the specs. So this is another way that if we collaborate with our bidders, we can actually use, we're going to see today, the bid form and bid packages to start breaking down some of those items in the specifications, and we can collaborate with those bidders to make sure that we have everything that we need included in our package. Incomplete bids, right? So obviously people who are leaving things out, right? They forget things. They completely overlooked something when they were looking at the specs. So again, something that helps them is if there's already a broken down bid package, that can kind of be a good way, almost a checklist for bidders to look at that as well. And then of course, things like different unit pricing. So, across your different bidders, people are using different unit prices for their labor, materials, equipment, all of these. And so it's important to be able to look at those types of things. And in RedTeam, you can certainly build a cost code assembly with units and all of that. And then we can use that to compare across bidders. So obviously these things are all big challenges. We know we've had these challenges before, right? So these things, as we know, can lead to all kinds of project problems. So getting these right the first time is critical. And something else I want to point out, right, is that these challenges happen all throughout the project. As much as we're talking a lot about pre-construction today, this same process occurs pretty much every time you have a change order. So when you are trying to put together bids and prices in a change order, you can use these same tools. So just something to point out. All right, so collaborative tools. How do we start using collaborative tools to help improve the bidding process? Right. So obviously, we are going to want to use tools that will help us to gather and organize bid data, right? So anywhere that we can use a tool that lets us collect that information in one place, already a good start. Obviously, we know that's something RedTeam can do. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. How can we gather and get all that data from all our different bidders? Once we've gotten that, then we want to analyze those bids. We want to make sure, are they consistent? Are they complete? Did everyone include everything they needed? We're going to be able to do that as well. And then, of course, because we can level that, we can, address any of those discrepancies, and we can work with those contractors, and we can collaborate with them to be able to make sure that they're including everything they need to in their scope and their bid and so forth. Okay, so a few kind of tips, right? Steps for effective bid leveling, right? So some things, these are specific to RedTeam, right? So these are some things you might utilize, maybe you already do today, and if not, these are things definitely a CSM can get into more detail with you as well about. But one thing is to build detailed assemblies. We're going to show the process of this in just a minute here. But building a detailed assembly is going to help you so that you have that breakdown, so you can quickly identify the discrepancies between the bids and the different bids submitted by your bidders. Utilizing vendor qualifications. So vendor qualifications are something available in RedTeam today. If you're not using them, you can start using them now. That's something that you can set up yourself. You customize your qualifications to your company, right? And then you start assigning those qualifications to bidders. These, of course, are as broad as things like the trades that they perform, but could also be things like states that they perform in, and any other types of qualifications you use to kind of pare down that list of bidders when you're looking for people to quote your jobs. The other thing is to require your bidders to use the bid form. Now, I know this is a lot easier said than done, right? But if you do start using the bid form, you send this out, right? You're requesting the quotes this way, and they're using the bid form to now submit those bids. You're going to get consistency a lot more across your different bidders, because now, rather than having to pull information off a PDF or out of an email or whatever, now those numbers are just entered automatically. Again, I get it, easier said than done, but we'll talk a little bit about how that looks today. So maybe we can get some more of those folks on board. One just like kind of quick tip that I threw in here was, that master assemblies are something we're not going to get too in depth in today, but it's something available in RedTeam. So master assemblies let you kind of preset almost all of your breakdown of scope for all your various cost codes that are in the system. And you can have multiple master assemblies per cost code, right? So you could have a master electrical assembly, and you could have different types. Could be, electrical work for different size buildings or things like that. Now, this is more common, if you do a lot of repetitive work and you typically break your scopes down similarly. But if that's something you do, the master assemblies are a feature I would definitely recommend. Okay. Finally, before we get into looking at some RedTeam stuff here, we're just going to talk a little bit about, just bid negotiation. This is just a general topic, right? So, what are some good tips for negotiating bids with your vendors, right? So one of them obviously is do your research, right? Prepare, understand, the market that you're working in. Before you start negotiating, make sure you understand kind of the rates, the costs, the trends, in the market that you're working in. It's going to help you leverage that information to make better decisions. Another thing, of course, is know your subs. This is, of course, easier when you do a lot of work in the same place. But making sure you do your due diligence to research, a subcontractor history, their history on past projects, all those things. That's going to help you as well when you're making your selections. Leveraging multiple bids. Seems like an obvious one, but you want to get multiple bids. That makes you more competitive. You could negotiate better, gives you a wider range of options, strengthens your position, right? You can use that as leverage when you're comparing bids one against the other, and especially when you're able to break that down, with specific items. Now you can really have those detailed negotiations. And then finally, building strong relationships. It's important, to have that trust and partnership with your subcontractors. So, taking a collaborative approach to, building a bid, almost building it together, right? Giving them a foundation to submit numbers against, but being collaborative with them, being able to change things on the fly when you need to. We're going to talk about through the bid form. That's all really advantageous. All right. So that's kind of the general topics, right? It's just a little bit on bid leveling. Now, what we, of course, are here for is to take a look at some of these tools. How do we use some of the new stuff in RedTeam, and how does it work? So first and foremost, just a quick overview. What we're going to talk about, we're going to look at how we build bid packages. So again, if you have not seen bid packages at all yet, in a little bit, we're going to talk about how you get that turned on for your company. But if you haven't seen it yet, we're going to go through that process. How do you actually go through and build a bid package, how you send that out. Just a quick thing on how you might update bid dates or update your bidders with information throughout that process. How does it look for the vendor to submit a bid? And then what does that look like when you're comparing those bids and doing the leveling and selecting them as best? So all of those things we're going to cover. We wanted to talk a little bit about building a bid package. So let's go back to that. So I'm in a job, like I said, not going to go through too much the setup of a job. That's already been done in this project. We're jumping straight forward to the stage where we're kind of in estimating and we are building bid packages. This is what I had wanted to show, was the estimate step. And what I had been starting to say was that in here, we can actually add cost codes directly to the estimate. So bid packages can either be built first or after, or simultaneously, right? Is the point that I want to make. You could start by building an estimate, adding all your cost codes, and then you can build bid packages from there. Or, you can build a bid package, and any cost codes you then add to a bid package will automatically update in your estimate. So just a quick note there. So I could add cost codes from here, or I could just start with adding package at this stage, which is what I'm going to do in this case. So building a bid package really just is starting with, you're going to give it a name. This is going to be an electrical package. I could call whatever I want. There is an option here to start to set some details like your bid due date. So when is this due, right? I can obviously go in here and adjust this for all my bidders now, or I can decide to do that later. Same with any attachments I want to load in, any instructions I want to add. But for now, I'm going to start just building the package. So like I just mentioned, I can either assign cost codes from my estimate. This pulls everything that's currently in my estimate right now. And I could start from there, or I can go in and I can add cost codes. And if I add them this way, then everything is going to go into the estimate automatically. And in my case, I'm going to look for some cost codes here. You'll have to excuse that we have a lot of cost codes and data in ours. There we go. All right. And for now, I'm just going to add 2. So you can add as many cost codes as you need to a bid package. And you have the ability to break that down, excuse me, with more detail once they've been added. So adding them here is kind of only the first step. From there, you kind of go in and start adding more detail. Again, this could have been done in the estimate, and I could just be pulling this in if I wanted to. But the whole idea is to get pretty detailed. This is one of those kind of tips we talked about, is the more you break it down, the more the bidders can exclude from their numbers. Keep adding some items here. Go down to my other item, right? And I'm just going to keep building that. So that's the first step. First step is building those items, getting a nice breakdown. Now, one just like small tip note I'm just going to throw out there is that keep in mind the Red Team does support unit prices and these inventory items. So this is specific to your company, but you can set up items. They're most often used for things like labor, but you can set up items that will automatically then calculate cost and price at the same time, because as you add these, like let's say if I had a labor item as an example, this is just for my example here, then I can it'll pull in those numbers for me automatically, the numbers that I have set up for my company. So just something to note. I also mentioned master assemblies earlier, and so just kind of like a quick note about master assemblies, right, is just that this assembly that I'm building here in this bid package, I can essentially save these, right, as master assemblies and reuse them later. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. Okay. All right, so the next step in when you're building bid packages, right, of course, is then to assign bidders. So the next thing we wanted to talk about was, okay, how do I start adding bidders and then sending this out? How do I get them to be able to actually bid on this? And so the next step is adding bidders. One of those tips I had mentioned earlier was to be using things like qualifications. So when I go in here to search for potential bidders, obviously I could search by names, right? Maybe even just in this case, right, I'm looking for electricians. So I can certainly do it that way and start to select companies from my list, add them there, or I can use some of those requirements. Those are those qualifications. And I have other things as well here, not just qualifications, but where they're located based on the job site for this project, what insurance credentials they have. Again, I apologize that this environment has a lot of examples, but in any case, you can search for all the bidders that you want using those kind of qualifications to narrow it down a little bit. But as you add bidders, it's going to automatically add them to this list. As you can see, we've not sent anything yet. The next step will be to send that out. But I can continue to work on this, and even after I've sent that request for quote, which emails them the bid form to fill out, that I can continue to update this bid package, and it will update on that bid form automatically. Now, every single one of my bidders here has a quote card. So a quote card is something I can open up here and I can actually see a little bit more detail. I can change some specific items for this specific bidder. For example, if I happen to know this bidder is going to take a while with their quote and I want to make their due date maybe a little bit earlier than everyone else's, I can do that. If I need to put some notes in here, I can do that. But also, really importantly, is where I select my contacts. I happen to pick a vendor that has no contacts in RedTeam. And so they're going to need contacts for me to be able to email a bid form to them. And you will be able to see as well for a vendor if they have multiple contacts. I'm trying to see if I have any examples. Of course, none of these guys do, but if I have one with multiple contacts, I'll be able to select both of them. Once I have contacts, then I'll be able to actually email my my bid forms out. So it's still going to send a request for quote. It's going to send an email. Anyone who's been doing this in RedTeam in the past already knows that we send a request for quote email. It looks the same. The difference now is that they will be opening a bid form to fill out, which will give them this bid package. We're going to look at that next in just a minute. Before we do that, one thing I just want to note is that in here, we do have some ways to update bidders with things, right? So obviously throughout the pre-con bidding process, right, we're going to have some updates to things like bid dates. We're going to have some changes to, just messages, things we need to send them. So of course you could do that by just going in and sending a message to the bidders. So that's going to be just a quick message. The other thing is when we change bid dates, like for example, if I change a bid date for the entire bid package, it'll update it for all bidders, and we'll send a message to those bidders to let them know that that has been updated, unless of course they've either said they're not bidding or they've already submitted their quote. So I'm going to stop there. I do want to see, I'm actually going to kind of open it up and see if there are any questions. If anyone wants to post questions, if you have any so far about building bid packages, before we talk a little bit about what this looks like for the vendor to submit against the bid form. Okay, the question is, do bidders need to be RedTeam users? A really good question, and the answer is no. Right now, we are validating them by the email, right? We know their email, if they're a contact in RedTeam, and then you send it to them, they get a special link, they open it, we know who they are. So they will be able to open that without having to log in. They don't need to be a RedTeam user. Okay, all right, so what I'm gonna do here is I am actually gonna switch over to, I'm in the same project, but I'm gonna go to a different bid package I already have set up that I've already sent an email for. And just to kind of show you in here, this is the quote card for this vendor here. Oops, I'm sorry. Dade Builders, and this is the contact person I have. So again, this is kind of where your contacts are going to show up in the quote card when you have them. So let's look at an example. I have already sent them the quote. They've actually already started submitting against it, and so I see they have one number. But I still want to show you what that looks like from an email when you open it up. So give me a second here. I'm going to open up my email instead. And in here, they're still going to have that request for quote email. They're going to be able to open in there that bid form. And the bid form now is, back up to the top, going to be more of a dynamic collaborative document they submit. So it has all the same information. They need to know about the project, all of those kinds of details. But the most important part of this bid form is that breakdown from the bid package. And this is exactly what you're seeing right here. So this right here, this is updating in real time. So as a vendor comes in here and sees this, like I mentioned already as an example, if I'm still working on this bid package and adding cost codes, they're going to see this updating in real time. And so lines may get added and they can actually adjust numbers. And as the vendor as well is adjusting numbers on the bid form, this is adjusting in the bid package for that bidder, at least in their column, right? Those numbers are updating. And the idea is that this is a real-time exercise. This is something that not only can I just send to the vendor and say, hey, can you submit these numbers? But I could actually work with them, right? I could literally call them up and say, open the bid form and, let's talk about some of the scope items you missed. And I can be adding things directly in RedTeam, and in real time, they're seeing the updates on the bid form. And vice versa, as they plug their number in, it's updated on my side. And I see that, again, real time. And so that's the idea. They're going to come in here. They can do this by updating, their numbers item by item here. They also have the ability as well, though, to come down here to the bottom and just submit one total quote amount, and we'll distribute it accordingly based on the items they've selected to include. So we'll go ahead and make those changes. The vendor as well can, of course, update their own, can upload their own files if they want to upload, let's say, a PDF or a copy, their own copy, or some supplementary information. They can do that. They, of course, have access to the plans and specs in the plan room. Of course, they're going to need that. But again, this is the idea, this collaborative document here. So that's the new bid form. This is a little preview for you guys. Like I said in the beginning of this call, this is only available for people who are upgraded to bid packages. So that's something that you may or may not have. We're going to switch back in a minute here and talk about how you would get that upgrade in just a bit. Anyway, but before I do that, what I'm going to do is actually switch back to RedTeam here and just kind of quickly show you that those changes that I had just made in that bid form already updated in RedTeam. So that's exactly what I had just typed in that bid form as the vendor. That was updated in here, again, real time, all those numbers. And as you can see, I can adjust that. So if I need to, I certainly can change this on behalf of the vendor. So, again, could be a phone conversation or email back and forth, and I can certainly go in. I forgot to check that box. I can make those adjustments as needed. When I'm ready, I can lock in a vendor's number by committing the bid. So if I commit this bid or this quote, it will lock that in. The bid form also locks. So the vendor then no longer will be able to adjust those numbers once you have locked that in. Now, all you need to do if you need to unlock it is simply move it back to draft. So if I commit this, the vendor calls me up and says, I really got to change something, I can certainly just move it back to draft. That will unlock it. I can literally tell them, refresh the page. They can make some changes. No problem. So that's the idea. The whole idea is that now we've created this collaborative environment where we can review these bids, real time with the vendor. We can be adjusting the things as needed from in this screen. And then, of course, we can level all these bids. Now I can see all of the bids against each other. I can see all my different vendors, who's including what. I can go into my quote card. I can get a little bit even more detail here. As you can see, for items they've excluded from their quote, right? So I can see items they've excluded, items that are already being done by other vendors. So these are items already in other quotes selected as best. People are already doing these things. So it's giving me this kind of nice should cost comparison for this particular bidder. So it's just, all of these quote cards. The entire idea is to have in one place. We've done that, gathering all the requirements, the information all together, collaborating with these bidders, leveling the bids across all of them for this bid package right from this screen. Okay, I am going to stop there again and just see again if we do have any other open questions. We're getting kind of close to the end of the items that we wanted to talk about. The last thing really on our list to talk about was, selecting your quotes as best. Once you've chosen your best quote, how do you pick that bidder as your best bidder? And I have an example here of one that I had already selected. I selected this guy as best for these items, right? And so, could be that I have a case where I've got maybe this bidder who's going to do the other items, and I can, of course, go in here and say that they have the best quote for those items. Selecting as best is just a matter of choosing that they are the best quote. I'll be able to do that so long as they have items that are not already being covered somewhere else. Okay, so let's talk about the important part then. And I'm happy to take more questions as well, but let's talk a little bit about how we get access to it. Okay, so let's just quick here, go back to our presentation. All right, so like I said, some of you guys may or may not already have the upgrade. I don't have, the list in front of me based on our attendees today. So one of the things to check is with your admin. If you are the admin, you can always go into your company preferences in the configuration menu for my company and see if you have the bid packages option turned on. This was turned on for a select group of of clients who opted in early. So if you're part of that group, you may already have this. If you are not, then you'll want to contact your CSM. If you're not sure, contact your CSM. So this is a quick way to do that. This code here, this QR code, you could scan that. That'll get you in touch with them, and we'll get you directed to the right person to get all of this set up. We will, of course, have help articles, right, for all of these things as well. And we are continuing to improve on the features that we're introducing for bid form. So we are looking for feedback always, right? And we would love to hear from you guys. We really hope you guys try these features out. But we're happy to kind of share this. We're excited to share this new stuff with you. We're hoping you're excited too. So we're looking forward to getting a lot of you up and running on these. I appreciate it. Okay, that's everything for today. I'm going to see if we have any questions. I'm going to leave the QR code though up in case anybody. Okay, so one of the things we had, Annette, so we have a question about can quotes be imported into commitments? Yes, they can. So we do still have the ability then to, when a quote is submitted by a vendor, you can, from the vendor quote screen, you can create a commitment and that'll import it in. It'll bring in all their items and so forth. And then you can, of course, adjust that to, adjust their contract accordingly. And can all the cost codes and scopes of work be carried over and copied to a new project? So the answer is yes, and with a caveat. So yes, you can copy those over. There is today an import through a spreadsheet to import from one estimate to another, which essentially does that. It builds all of those cost codes and the scopes. But we do have in development a tool that's going to let you just pull that from another project, say basically import all that from a different project or a prior project, and you won't then have to do the spreadsheet. So yes, there is a way today with the import. There will be a better way shortly, but it's not ready just today. A good question about notifications. When changes are made to the bid form, will we send out notices? Not yet. So that is not in this current version of the bid form. We're not sending any notices that the items in the bid package were changed. We are sending a notification if the bid date is updated, their due date, we will send one. However, the notifications for changes to the actual bid package itself, that's for a later phase. So we do not have that today. They will update automatically, but they won't get anything at that moment. So that does appear to be the majority of our questions for today. I don't see any others, at least open. Now, again, just one last reminder, your CSM code is here. This is also something though that, should you have other questions, follow-ups after this, they'd be happy to direct the questions to the proper channels and we'll get you answers to those. So if you think of something later today or you're sharing this information with your team and some questions come up, please feel free to direct those to your CSM and we'll get you the answers you need. All right, I don't think we have anything else. I am going to go ahead and end the session for today. I really, once again, appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. We are really looking forward to getting these features turned on for everybody. So definitely reach out and we'll be helping you guys all out shortly. Thank you all. Have a great Wednesday and a good week.